Up next, we go live to Paris. The family of the late South African ambassador, Nathi Mthethwa, has confirmed that his body will be flown back to South Africa this evening. They held a prayer service for him yesterday ahead of the planned repatriation. Mthethwa died last week after falling from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Newzroom Afrika correspondent Simon Marks has been closely following the story and joins us now live from the French capital with an update. Simon, good morning to you. It's a big day, but still many questions prevail around whether we'll ever get the answers about how Nathi Mthethwa died on the morning ahead of his repatriation to South Africa.
Absolutely, Iman. I mean, and just within the last few minutes, a member of the French public walking past me here asked me who I was reporting for, and I explained it was for Newzroom Afrika, and he understood that it was all about the death of the ambassador, and he said to me, it's very suspicious. I mean, this is going to be the day that the family has coveted for the last 9 days. They have been desperate, I think it's fair to say, to move the remains of the ambassador out of the French capital and repatriate them to South Africa. They will get that opportunity in about 14 hours' time. The ambassador's casket will be boarded earlier in the day onto Air France flight 990, which leaves here at about 9:10 this evening. That's the same time in South Africa, 9:10 Johannesburg time this evening, and makes the overnight journey back to Johannesburg. Yesterday, there was a prayer service that was held for the ambassador because his casket had been released by the government mortuary where the autopsy and post-mortem were being conducted. And it was a deeply moving and affecting occasion, an opportunity for the ambassador's family, including his son, who had arrived here from South Africa yesterday morning, along with his colleagues from the embassy, fellow diplomats, and of course family friends, to pay their tribute and their last respects to Nathi Mthethwa. And at that gathering, there were also many expressions of a complete failure to understand why he would have taken the tragic act of deciding to end his own life here at the Paris Hyatt Regency Hotel. Today, we think family members will be coming to this hotel in order to engage in the fetching the spirit rite that needs to take place before Nathi Mthethwa's remains can finally be returned to South Africa. That's the last formality, if you like, as the family then prepares to head to Charles de Gaulle Airport for the repatriation. And while we may never see the outcome of the French autopsy that has now been finished, because there's no guarantee it will ever be made public, it's also now apparent that there is not going to be a muscular South African police service investigation here in Paris after the French seem to have pushed back the government's plan to send 5 senior investigators here. Only one is going to be travelling here, and only for a meeting with French investigators. There's no sense any longer that the South African police, at least on the streets of Paris, are going to be launching their own investigation. So after 9 days of this, since the ambassador's body was discovered by a security guard here at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, there are still as many questions over why he seems to have decided to kill himself as there are answers.
Simon, if I may, and it's interesting because we know that we have, public access to information, the Public Access to Information Act in South Africa, which, serves the desire of what might be in the public interest in a case like this to understand what happened, what the results of the autopsy or the post-mortem are, to provide those clues as to his final moments and what went on here. As some people speculate, these are suspicious circumstances. Do you know what the French equivalent might be and whether that can actually be done? Whether anyone will ever have access, including the family, to that ultimate autopsy report?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and I looked into it yesterday. I had a meeting yesterday with a veteran colleague and friend of mine who lives here in Paris and has reported here for over 20 years. There is no French equivalent of any kind of Freedom of Information Act, certainly as far as the autopsy is concerned. the autopsy that has been conducted by the French authorities, that report will be furnished to the magistrate overseeing the investigation and the case that was created when Nathi Mthethwa died here just over a week ago. The family, through their legal representatives, can then ask the magistrate to release the autopsy report to them, but the magistrate is not required to do that, and certainly the magistrate is not required to furnish the autopsy to anybody else who writes to what they have here, this Institute Legal Medical that they have here, and says, I'd like to see that autopsy report. So there is no immediate process for learning necessarily what French pathologists gleaned when they were able to conduct that autopsy and post-mortem. But of course, it is possible that once the ambassador's body is repatriated to South Africa, some degree of further investigation may be able to occur.
Wow, and that will be something that we might have to pick up with the family about whether they will allow that, especially after all of these traditional rites have already been concluded, Simon, which we know are very important and at the same time very somber and final. We'll pick the story up with you later on and continue to monitor developments in the repatriation of the remains of Nathi Mthethwa.